Well, with this war in its fifth day and with US and Israeli fighter jets dominating the skies and with almost no Iranian air defense capabilities, the Trump administration has kept up its barrage of often contradictory reasons for starting the conflict in conjunction with Israel. Here's a flavour of what the administration has been saying since the president first announced those attacks on Saturday morning.
Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime.
Their war on Americans has become our retribution against their Ayatollah.
We're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces.
It was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack if we didn't do it. To the great, proud people of Iran, when we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take.
This is not a so-called regime change war.
We hope that the Iranian people can overthrow this government and establish a new future for that country. We would love for that to be possible. But the objective of this mission is the destruction of their ballistic missile capabilities and of their naval capabilities.
Hussein Banai is an associate professor at Indiana University in the United States. He specialises in US-Iran relations. Welcome to DW. So, beyond the conflicting statements we've heard from the US President, the US Defense Secretary and the Secretary of State, what do you understand to be behind this joint US-Israeli attack on Iran?
Well, it's very incoherent at the moment. On the one hand, you get a set of arguments that seem to be very much centered on Washington's preference for a change in the regime, a new leadership cadre, perhaps, not even if it is still the regime apparatus in place, but a new cadre of leadership in charge. But you also get a set of arguments that point to degradation of Iranian defensive capabilities and offensive capabilities, not just a nuclear program, but Iran's missile program, Iran's ability to project power throughout the rest of the region, and perhaps even aimed at neutralizing Iran's ability to be able to especially establish some sort of deterrence against the Arab Gulf monarchies.
OK, so we've heard all that swirling around. Do you see it as being all of that, or do you see something behind this? Do you see something deliberate in this US action? What do you think they're trying to achieve?
Well, I think where it's arrived now, it's very clear that they have knocked down the head of the Iranian government, the supreme leader, and 49 other very senior leadership. So the project has become what kind of government comes in power in Iran after, whether they like it or not. I think the intention all along was to hit Iran hard and perhaps figure out what emerges immediately after. I think we're in that period of muddling through to see, if there is a kind of class of leadership that Washington would be happy with. I think that's something that ultimately comes down to the president. The president has spoken on all sides of this, President Trump has, and his desires have changed almost from hour to hour. He even mentioned yesterday that the leader he would have preferred, they may have killed inadvertently as well. So it's hard to really sift through the logic, but the reality is that we have ended up in a place where everyone is going to increasingly be asking, what is Washington's plan for Iran? What type of leadership cadre would they like to see in place of what was there before that they have gotten rid of?
And you are clear that we're in the stages of muddling through. No coherent plan, not even the fact that lots of different people within the White House are telling us lots of different things. But as far as you can tell, no coherent plan, despite the lessons not learned, apparently, from 2 Gulf wars, Afghanistan, and even Gaza, for what are we doing and what do we do next?
Absolutely. I mean, I've said this in some op-eds that I've written. I think the strategy of shooting first and aiming later is the best I can describe this. Better, more comprehensively planned wars have not turned out well, as you just referenced. This one seems to have been almost an afterthought in terms of what to do next. So muddling through, really going on a daily basis seems to be where this White House, and mind you, this White House, when I say there is no policy process in the decision making here, there's no National Security Council, there's no Iran desk that's writing memos and briefing books that the president is studying every day. This ultimately came down to three men: Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law; Steve Witkoff, his golf partner, who were the negotiators; and the president himself deciding that it was time to commence war. And now they're kind of taking it, seems to be hour by hour.
And what about Donald Trump's call to the Iranian people to rise up? How sensible an ask is that when the IRGC still seems to be intact?
I think it's very dangerous. I mean, the White House has already walked that back a little bit, saying it's too dangerous for people to take to the streets just yet. Wait until we, finish bombarding the IRGC and various different governmental offices, and then we'll tell you when to take to the streets. It's a risky strategy, but also, the people get a vote in this as well. They're watching the manner in which Washington is proceeding in the prosecution of this war. And if you're an ordinary Iranian, you should ask yourself, well, if there's no clear alternative, why should I risk my neck going out there, getting shot by, the IRGC thugs, or getting hit by a missile coming from Israel or US accidentally? So I think in the absence of clear plans for what the alternative looks like, you're going to find resistance of ordinary people who are frustrated, taking to the streets and taking matters into their own hands.
There was already a succession plan to replace Ayatollah Khamenei. He was 86 after all. But a whole swath of his potential successors has now been taken out. So how big a crisis is this for the regime?
I do think they had planned for this eventuality after the 12-day war with Israel and the United States over the June 2025. And so the constitutional process is taking place right now. The latest indications are that the son of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Mojtaba Khamenei, seems to be emerging as the favorite right now. And so I think the regime had pre-gamed what happens if the first and second and third layer of possible candidates are taken out. And I think that's where his son really comes up. He was always mentioned. His name had kind of almost dropped off for consideration before, but now seems to have gone back to him because so many other people are unavailable. And mind you, this is a role now that has a target on its back from the moment it is announced. So you also have to find a willing candidate to take this on, knowing that the Israelis and American fighter jets would be working hard to take him out.
And I suppose what I'm driving at is what sort of regime will whoever succeeds Khamenei, what sort of regime will they be sitting on top of? How precarious is this for Iran's rulers at this moment? How precarious a moment is this?
A much more brittle, frankly, shrunken state that is far more oriented now and geared toward entrenched security interests. So the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guards, are going to be dictating the day-to-day affairs. The command and control structure having been really hit hard, I think you're going to see it very difficult for anyone in charge to have centralized power quite the way the supreme leader did before. But a regime nonetheless that would still be there and operating first in shadows and perhaps much more cohesively as Western patience wears out and American and Israeli warplanes take a backseat.
Okay. Help us speculate. Nobody knows how this is going to end. Let's start there, right? But I know that Iran has long been an area of research for you. So help us with this. Let's say the US and Israel bomb the Iranian leadership out of power. That we have Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying that this mission is specifically not about nation building. And I guess Israel sees it as being in its interest to keep its antagonistic neighbour weak. But that weakness is likely to be accompanied, at least initially, by massive instability. So Paint for us a picture of the potential horror or the haven of peace that could emerge the day after.
Well, sadly, horror is all I can think of, precisely because you're dealing with a state that was already massively under duress, economically, for all intents and purposes, completely devastated. The Iranian currency had collapsed. Iranian institutions were ossified even before this war, and now they're physically probably have been wiped out of existence. You have a cadre of entrenched Revolutionary Guards that are likely to be in charge, whose main interest is to survive first and then to further entrench their own interests. So you're going to see, levels of corruption even go up much higher. And then you will find a state that is trying to, fight out its and lashing out at its enemies that it seeks. That it sees as trying to take advantage of it at every corner. So perhaps more cross-border attacks on Arab Gulf monarchies, disrupting the shipment of oil through the Straits of Hormuz, and domestically more repression against its perceived enemies. And so I see evolving out of this, a much more entrenched, more repressive, more paranoid, more corrupt regime the day after than anything that was there prior to this. Now, this might be to the liking of Benjamin Netanyahu. He wanted a weakened, neutered state. It might be to the liking of even Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia, an Iran that is not only contained, but is so severely weakened, but it augurs really terribly well for the Iranian people.
So looking wider, how long do the Gulf states who are now being bombed by Iran and its proxies, including Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Bahrain, Iraq, and even Cyprus, how long do they stand for this? And how and against whom do they exert pressure to make this stop?
Well, already we're seeing signs that they're exerting pressure on the U.S. State Department and American government, asking for more interceptors to guard against incoming Iranian missiles. But at the same time, you have the latest reporting that Iran's waves of missile attacks against Arab countries is on a downward trajectory. So they may be exhausting their stockpiles. Some of this probably was pre-planned, that the Arab countries were prepared for an initial wave and then for it to eventually die down. But they also know that Iran is capable of exerting itself besides, conventional methods of launching missiles. So they'll launch terrorist attacks. There will be, car bombs going off in Riyadh or outside of oil facilities, and that can really take its time. Mind you, Iran fought an 8-year war against Saddam Hussein with many of these Arab countries on Saddam's side. So it has experience. The Revolutionary Guards have experience and strategic patience with going after their neighbors where it hurts from time to time. And the Arab states are aware of this. I'm sure they're communicating this to Washington. Whether they're getting, any reception from the White House, that's an entirely different question.
Okay, that's a fascinating and clear analysis, and we thank you for it. Iran specialist Hussein Banai from Indiana University.
Thank you very much.